Well, hey, welcome to another video. I'm glad that you're joining us today. And as always, I'm just going to give you guys a little info about why we're doing this series, what this series is about. And this series we've been in for a while now, called The Journey to the Paddles of the Past, or From the Paddles of the Past. And the reason why I'm doing this series, the reason why I'm making these videos, one is because I love being able to just look at the paddles of where I started to where I'm at now, but also to give you guys a little insight about who I am, how I started, where the paddles I've used to shape my game, and just info on that stuff, but also just so you guys can get just some views of some of the paddles that the past has created, and now where kind of the paddles that we're using now and some of the Gen 3 paddles came from, some of the ideas that the Gen 3 paddles came from. And so it's an exciting journey. I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. But as we continue, there's one paddle that we'll be talking about today that I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think partly because I said in a couple of videos ago, I got so addicted to power in paddles that this paddle I need to try again, honestly, because I could not use this paddle because I didn't think it had enough power. And a lot of that has changed now. A lot of my game has changed, and it's improved my game, not using so much heavy power. But at the time I got this paddle, well, first off, I won it in a contest, which is really cool. I didn't have to pay for it, which is always a bonus for me. But this paddle itself, I didn't really, I think, appreciate at the time I got it, and that's the Carbon 3X. This is a very carbon looking paddle. One, matches everything I have, which is cool. I really like that about it. It matches my chair, it matches my blanket on my bed. But this paddle I never really gave a shot, I feel like, because it was, even though this is the power version again, it doesn't lean towards power. It's very much a all court game controlling paddle, which is really good for higher up skill levels. But when I got this paddle, I was not there yet, and I still only wanted to just hit the ball as hard as I could, and I never gave it a shot. I would play a game with it, have one or two mistakes, and I would go back to my old paddle. But we're going to give you some percentages on this paddle, just so you guys have a little insight on it. Control/feels around 84%. The power sits around 85, but I would, compared to paddles now, this was when I first got it, these numbers were there, I would probably put it around like a 70%. The spin probably is around like 80%, 85%. The forgiveness is really high on this paddle. It has a big sweet spot. It's very easy to use. The average weight is about 7.8 to 8.2. The swing weight is actually pretty high. It's 119, so it's not super high, but it's not super low. The twist weight is 6.79, which is a pretty high number. The length of it is 16.5, which, again, this is something I've started to love, is elongated paddles and longer paddles. So I'd be really excited to try this paddle again and just see how it feels a little bit in my hands. The width is about 7.5 inches. It has the T700 raw carbon fiber face. The grip circumference is 4.25, which is pretty average. The handle length is 5.25, which again is pretty average. There's a lot of paddles that have that length. The core is the polymer, and then the price is really high on this paddle. It's $230. You can use a code that will get it down to like $200, but it's still pretty high. And with paddles of this generation, with just some of the paddles and companies, with all the competition coming out, you could get a paddle that is as good as this for a lot cheaper. And that is one thing I think to take into account when we're talking about stuff like this. But it's a well-rounded paddle for power and control. Again, it leaned more on control, even though it's a power series, and I at the time did not give it a shot. I think now, if I was playing with it now, I would give it a lot more of a chance. I think I'd be a lot better with it. I think the paddle itself is really good, but I didn't give it much of a chance. It has big spin, so if you are a heavy spin player, whether it's your serves or some side shots or anything in the kitchen, the spin, even on returns, the spin's really big. It's a more offensive option than the original series. It's a lighter swing weight than some of the other ones, but it's still a heavier swing weight than most paddles. And the comfortability, I would say, the handle is, it's a very comfortable paddle. I like it a lot. It has less control than some of the original series, but it still leans very heavy control compared to some of these newer paddles that are coming out. When this originally came out, some of this stuff was different, and so this was less control than the original series, but it's still heavy control in my opinion. It has a very long adjustment period, and this is stuff that I wrote down when I first got this paddle, when I originally was going to start making videos on this channel, and it just timing and a lot of stuff in life didn't work out. But it does take a very long time. It has a long adjustment period due to stiff feel. It just feels different. You feel a different vibration. It does not enhance your game very much, and it has a very expensive price tag. And so those are some of the pros and cons of this paddle. But all in all, it's a good paddle. I think even today, this is a very competitive paddle that you could use. And even for my game, I think if I went back to using this, which I probably will, just to give it a shot, it's a very good paddle. The build quality is really good. A lot of the core crushing that originally would happen in the carbon has not happened with this paddle, and a lot of people have used it. I've used it off and on for a long time, but now even more so. I think the effectiveness of this paddle is still compatible, just because it has a lot of spin and a lot of control, and you can get a lot more power out of it if you are better at the game and not a beginner. I don't know if this is really a beginner paddle. I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner. It takes a long time to get used to. It doesn't feel amazing when you're playing with it. It doesn't feel bad, but there's other paddles that just feel so much better when you're playing with them. So I wouldn't recommend this to someone who's newer to the game. And it's hard to even recommend it just because there's paddles that Bread and Butter has made that are very similar to this that are a lot cheaper. Or again, going back to Vatic or the Mavericks, there's just paddles that are a lot cheaper than the price tag that they put on this that can do pretty much everything that this can do. So really, with this paddle in particular, you're just paying for the name. And I never really recommend paddles that you pay for the name unless they're just better than what's on the market. And this one's not really better than what's on the market. It gives you a lot. The shape is very similar to a lot of paddles on the market, which probably copied the shape of this, but there's a lot of paddles on the market that have a similar shape, similar feel, that do exactly what this does, and some even better that are like half the price. So because of that, I don't know if I'd recommend it. If you win it free like I did, then I highly recommend it. But yeah, this isn't a paddle that I used a ton. I'm not really personally connected to this paddle, but it is a good paddle. It does feel good. If you bought one of these, I'm sure you got a lot of use out of it. It's not a bad paddle. It's a hard paddle to get used to. And for me, when I was first playing, it didn't have the amount of power I would like to play with. I can generate a lot more power on my own now. And so a paddle like this wouldn't be as hard for me to get used to now than when I originally started playing. But when I couldn't generate my own power, I had a hard time with that. Hard time putting shots away. But in the kitchen, when you're dinking a lot of your controlled paint in the line shots, this is a really good paddle for those. Even to this day, it's very competitive. You could use it against a lot of paddles and be very successful with. Resetting is great with it, but it is a longer learning period with this paddle because it does feel a lot different than other paddles. But that's the Carbon 3. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and again, as always, if you have any comments that can help me do these videos better, anything that you would like to hear in some of these videos as we are journeying into the past and taking a look at some of these paddles. These are not really paddle reviews. These are more personal stories, personal feel. But when we get to the newer stuff, when new paddles are released, when I get sent new paddles, whether that whatever happens with that, those will be reviews. But in this journey from the paddles of the past, these are all kind of just personal feel, personal advice on if I would buy them or if I wouldn't, stuff like that, where I'm just taking a look of paddles I've used to get my game to where it is now, and that's kind of what our goal is. But if you have any comments of in reviews, when I do actual reviews, anything you'd like to hear in those, but even in these videos, anything that you would like me to say, like me to tell you about, talk about in these videos as we continue the journey, let me know. Comment, like this video, subscribe to this video. Everything you do helps me be able to grow the brand, grow the channel. Any advice you give me helps me to be able to better off help you guys connect better with this channel, and hopefully as we continue this journey, we will build a healthy community, build a comfortable community. So yeah, I'm hopeful. Anything you do is helpful. There's a list of discount codes I have, so if you're interested in buying any of the paddles that you've seen, you can go look at those codes and see if there's any discount codes that you can use. We have a code for athletic wear if you're interested in that as well. But that's all I have for you today. I hope you stuck around for this ending. But thank you for joining. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for all you do to help me continue to grow this channel. So I appreciate you. Leave any comments, like the video, subscribe, watch some of the other videos, and just see how you feel about this channel. But I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great day.